So now we're gonna get a little personal. I'm gonna tell you guys the exact amount of money we spent on all of our renovations and all that good stuff. Hi guys, so today is finally the long-awaited video on moolah and buying a house money, in case you guys didn't catch that. So part one of this video is going to be me talking about buying a house, everything you need to know about buying a house, money you should have saved up, and just like little tips and stuff. Part two of this video, which is going to be in this video, they're not going to be separate videos, but the second half of this video is going to be about flipping a house, the money you should have saved aside for flipping a house, and things that you might not know about for flipping a house. So if you guys are going to be buying a house, flipping a house, or you're just interested in this topic, then just keep watching. The first thing you should be doing if you're going to buy a house is figure out your money situation. So you want to take into account, obviously, how much money you make every month, and also how much money you have in your savings. And now your savings is so important. I feel like I know so many people, so many friends who literally have no savings. So for me, when I graduated high school, my parents, all of growing up, all the way up throughout high school, they told me that I had to have a certain dollar amount in the bank by the time I graduated. And now this was like a big chunk of change. Like, it was a lot of money. And I am so glad that they made me do this, but I'm definitely glad that I have the mindset of saving instead of spending. I think a lot of people, when they get a job, they're like, okay, I made $400. So I'm gonna pay this bill, and hey, I still have $200 left. That means I can spend this, and they go and spend it. And so make sure you're saving your money. If you guys are young and watching this, just save, because it's the best thing you can do. The second thing you're gonna need is a good credit score. I still don't have a credit card, so for me, if I wanted to ever go and buy a house on my own, I would not be able to because I don't have credit. Connor, a couple years before we got engaged, he knew we were obviously gonna need credit for a house, so he did whatever it took to get a credit card. It was a very hard process to get a credit card, but he finally got one. He built his credit score up, and it was really good. The third thing you need to do is tally up your monthly expenses and add $500 to $1,000 extra dollars on top of that. So if you think that every month you're spending $700, I would 100% add another $500 onto that, or an extra $1,000. And this isn't including like what you think your mortgage would be, but like just random things come up throughout buying a house, or if you guys are going to be married and buying a house, that like you definitely don't foresee. So I would do that. And then what you need to do is figure out how much you can spend on a house. You're gonna have to go to the bank and see how much you can get approved for a house. And this part is really important because I think a lot of people will go to the bank and say, hey, how much can we get approved for? And they might say $400,000 or something like that. And they're like, hey, like we can afford a $400 house. Like, let's $400,000 house. Like, let's go for it. Let's do it. Because if the bank is telling us we can, we must be able to. And I think that's how a lot of people get in trouble with like going under with their house and bankruptcy and foreclosures and all that kind of stuff. You definitely want to stick to your budget. We kind of had a budget in mind that we felt comfortable with spending, and we went to the bank and asked them if we could get approved for that amount, and they said yes. So that was awesome. There's a lot of different calculators online for mortgages that will calculate everything, but you do want to take into account also that on top of your mortgage payment, you're also going to have like property taxes, school taxes. We also have like a garbage disposal fee, which is like $96 every 4 months or so. And then you also have to take into account like your water bill, which again, it was super cheap for us. I think it's like $56 every 4 months. Obviously it depends, it could go up and down, but that was our last one. And then you're gonna have electric bill, which again was super cheap. So you have to also take in consideration like your taxes and then all of those extra bills that will come along with buying a house. Now it comes time to actually look for a house. you're obviously going to need a real estate agent for this to go around and search. So for Connor and I, with our budget that we had gotten approved for, we were specifically looking for our forever house. We wanted a house in the country, we wanted tons of land, and we wanted it to feel like very farmish and just super relaxing. So we looked at so many houses. Oh my goodness, it was crazy. There was one house that we both fell in love with, especially me. It was a very cute house. It was probably the same size as the house that we have now, so it wasn't huge, but it also wasn't like super tiny. But it was on 8 acres of land. This land was beautiful. There was wildflowers everywhere. Like, it was my dream, like, yard. I am such a person, I love fields with wildflowers. I don't know what it is, it's just my thing. So when I saw this, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I was like, let's put an offer in right now. There was also on the land, there was 2 big studios outside. So I was like, oh my goodness, I could turn one of them into like a vintage antique shop and people could come and I could sell my vintage antiques. And then I was like, the other one I could use as my office space. That way, like, I have an office to go out to every day. I don't have to like work inside the house. And there was a beautiful porch on this house. Like, oh my goodness, it was beautiful. There's a wood burning stove inside. Like, it was so cute. The issue though with this house was that the basement was pretty much a pool. So the basement was really weird. It was kind of like you had to jump down a hole to get to it, and it was really damp, and it was like red clay soil or something that was there, and that does not absorb water, and all the water basically, I guess, would just go to the basement. The house was very much so under our budget, so we could have afforded to put like a B-dry system in, but we were like, everyone was just telling us it wasn't a good idea, so we didn't do that. We randomly stumbled upon this house, which is not in the area we wanted to be in. It is in the most adorable area ever. It's very like, it's definitely like populated, but it's very like small town, super cute. There's lots of stores everywhere, so I think it's good for our stage of life right now. This house was, I think it was like $70,000 under the budget that we had originally intended on spending. And when we saw that, we were like, holy cow, this is crazy. And we saw all the potential in this house. So our mindset immediately went from wanting to buy a house that was move-in ready kind of, and like had a few changes, to we should get flip houses, try to earn our money and go from there. So I'm going to get into that more in the second half. But for now, definitely when you're buying a house, some of the things that you want to look for are, look at the foundation, look at the basement. Does the basement feel wet? Does it smell funky? Because usually those are 2 huge factors of if there's water damage and if it's flooding. It's also really good to look at houses after it's rained or on a rainy day. That way you can see if there's any water damage to the house and if there's any leakage in the house. A lot of the times, if you're looking during like a really, really dry month, you'll see like the houses feel great, and then you might buy the house and you're like, oh my gosh, our ceiling's leaking. Like, what is up with that? Obviously, you're gonna have an inspection done to your house, but things can still get overlooked, and it's very easy for things like that just to randomly pop up. I also really recommend looking at Zillow or any of those like real estate websites, and just kind of looking at all of the houses in that area and how like what the average cost of the houses are in that area. And this kind of brings us into part 2, which is, when you're going to buy a house, make sure that you're not buying like a super expensive house in a really cheap neighborhood, because if you do want to go and resell this house, chances are you're going to lose a ton of money. What we ended up doing was we bought a very inexpensive house in a medium priced neighborhood. We knew that if we just put in like an X amount of money, we would be able to get that money back and more, because all the houses are probably like, I would say at least $40,000 more than this house. So So yeah, that was great. So that's definitely just a really big tip. A lot of people ask us, why did we buy a house that we had to do so much work to? And a lot of people can't understand it. But like I said, we bought this house $70,000 under our original budget. And this house was, hold on, let me do the math quick on my phone. So this house is $55,000 less than the average house on the block. So we knew that if we put in, if we put in $20,000 and then we sell the house for what all the other houses are going for, we would be able to make $35,000 on this house. And that's a huge chunk of change to then put into either our next flip house or to put into our dream house. So now we're gonna get a little personal. I'm gonna tell you guys the exact amount of money we spent on all of our renovations and all that good stuff. Like I said, this house was so under budget, and I was like saying to Connor, I'm like, hey, this house is really under budget, so we should just try to keep it as cheap as possible. That way when we go to resell it, we will get a lot of money back for it, you know? And I was like, if we were planning on living here forever, we could put a ton of money into it, make this house what we would really, really want it to be, but that's just not our plan. We really want to be in the country. So we felt comfortable spending between $15,000 to $20,000. And now I'm not very sure on how it would work if you had to get like a construction loan. I think that's what it's called. If you want to renovate your house, you would have to go to the bank and like get a loan for that. Luckily, we were able to take this out of our savings accounts to do this, so that was a huge help for us. So I definitely would recommend trying to save as much, or even if you can only pay like a quarter of renovations on your own or half of it, it's still better than getting a loan to do this. So we said we would feel comfortable spending between $15,000 to $20,000. I was calculating it in my head, and I'm pretty sure that we spent like just about $15,000 to get the house to where it is right now. And remember, like this house, we tore down so many walls, put in hardwood floors. So I'm gonna go in order from most expensive to least expensive for renovation. So most expensive, without a doubt, was the hardwood floors. The hardwood floors for this house cost us $5,300. So there was a couple of rooms that didn't have hardwood floors, like the kitchen and the family room. And then there were some other rooms, since we tore down walls, that had to get hardwood floors patched. And the existing floors that were here were in pretty bad shape. So basically that $5,300 paid to put new flooring in areas. It also paid to sand the entire house, all the hardwood floors, and to restain all the floors. So we got a really good deal. I know that might sound expensive to some people, but that is like an amazing deal. Like that is so cheap for hardwood floors. So we were super blessed with that. Our next expensive thing was hiring a contractor. So I definitely, going on to a next house, would not hire a contractor. Our issue was that we had one room left to do, which was the family room. And we both didn't have time to do it. All we had to do in that room was put in sheetrock. And there was a couple of other like little things we had him do, like patch in some weird like holes that the electrician made that we just didn't have time to do. So we decided, like, we had saved so much money from doing all the work in the house ourselves. We're like, let's hire a contractor. So we hired one. The estimated budget was $2,400, which was what I felt very comfortable with. However, the end budget for it ended up being $3,600, which I was not okay with, and I was kind of upset about, honestly, because I don't think it should have been that much, and it's kind of a learning process. Our next highest expense, these two probably came in tied, was the electrician and our appliances. So for appliances, we got a new refrigerator and a new oven. I think that came to be around like $1,400 to maybe $1,700, somewhere along there. And then our electrician came to be probably like just under $2,000, if not $2,000. The reason why we had an electrician was because this house really had like no lights anywhere. All they had were lamps. Like our back room had no lighting. We had a lot of recessed lighting like put in to the ceiling just to make it look really good. and stuff like that. So that was those 2 expenses. And then I would say our last, like the rest, like all the miscellaneous expenses were pretty much just lumber, hardware, paint, all that kind of stuff. And that ended up being like the remainder of our budget that brought us to almost $15,000. And I talked about this in the last video, which was our family room makeover reveal, that we are both very over spending money. Like we just don't want to spend money anymore. It's like kind of just like, oh, we just feel like we've just been handing out money to people basically. So what I really recommend is if you're trying to flip a house and trying to do on a budget, do the work yourself. Like do everything possible you can do yourself, like YouTube stuff. We were gonna do the hardwood floors ourselves, so my parents were like, do not do the hardwood floors yourself, you're gonna ruin them. But I really think we could have done them ourselves. And there's just a lot of things that I would say you could do yourselves. I mean, when we hired someone to do all the work, I think the materials maybe came to like $800, but then the labor came with the labor on top of the $800 was like $1,200. So that's $1,200 that we could have saved had we just done it ourselves. And also I think you should really go to places that sell furniture really cheap, like Habitat for Humanity. Go and look at the side of your road, see if people are giving away free furniture. We got so much stuff for free, and that is what saved us a ton of money, and just being a really smart shopper and not rushing into things. I think when we get a new house, a lot of us get excited. We want to start ordering new furniture, but I promise you guys, if you just go slow with it and like slowly furnish your house, you're gonna save so much money because you're gonna get a lot more sales. You're gonna get a lot of things for free. Maybe if like your birthday or holidays come up, you might get gift cards to places, and you might be able to put that money towards things. So definitely just go slow with buying furniture and like making your house what you want it to be. And I think that, you know, we live in such a time now where everything has to be like such a fast transformation, and people just want things now and like quick. But going about this whole thing slow is definitely the way to go. You're gonna save yourself a lot of money, and it's gonna be a lot better outcome. In case I didn't mention, our next house, we would love for it to be our dream house. We also looked into building a house, which is like a totally different topic, but building a house was just gonna be way too expensive between buying the land, and you have to put in a septic, you have to put in like this huge thing of cement, like all of the extra things on top of the land was gonna be like $80,000, and then you have to build the actual house, which was gonna be like $200,000. Like it was so expensive. So we're kind of hoping that maybe either our next house will be our forever home in the country, or after this house you might flip a few more and live in them for a couple years, just to kind of like get more money into our account so we can finally get our dream home. We are thinking we're probably gonna live in this house for like 2 to 3 years, and then move on to our next house. So like I said, if I didn't answer any of your questions, leave them in a comment below and I'll try to get to them. I could also make another part of this video if there's a lot of questions, but hope you guys are having a great day. And if you are looking for a house, good luck. It's definitely a long process, but it's so worth it at the end, and so much fun to be in a house with your best friend. But I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye!